We are gonna find Mooney. Let's see. This is the Atlas Mooncast. I'm the Atlas part. And we'll see.
All right.
Yay! Oh my god, perfect. I love your background. Is this oh my god, that's so cool. I love the oh yeah, that is sick. Is it a
All right, let me
tapestry
just
or is
show
it
you
like a
actually
painting?
while we're getting everything started.
Yeah.
Tapestry. Yeah, so it's got all the zodiacs along the sides, like on the border. Right?
I love this.
And then it's like
This is so dope.
I
Oh, and you
do.
play a
And then I've
guitar. I
got
didn't know
like
you
my
played
little altar
guitar.
there. Yeah.
Your little altar. Oh my gosh, I love
Thanks.
this. Cool. Awesome. Hello.
Yes,
Happy
yeah.
Mercury Retrograde.
I think it's
Is it today? It's
the 28th,
tomorrow,
so that
right?
was yesterday, I believe.
It was the 20th. I gotta be honest. Every time that there is like some sort of transit where it's like, oh, be aware, it's like 3 weeks long or 3 months or whatever. Like, I never know the exact day. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. We're either way. People are like, oh, well, when you're in the shadow of it, you feel it. And I'm like, what? The shadow of it? Do you know anything about, like, are you like a big, do you have the rundown on Mercury retrograde? Because I feel like whenever I describe it, it's very like, oh, well, it's this time. Like, I never know exactly why they call it
No, but
retrograde because
it
it's not
just,
moving
yeah, so it
backwards.
just
It
looks
just looks
kind
like
of like
it.
the way
Okay.
in which it is the alignment of the planet with the Earth as it's orbiting. It looks like it's going slower and like moving farther and closer to the Earth. So like during um,
Okay.
it does look like it's slowing down. And then also like because of that, and it's just about the orbit of the planet, each planet only does it
Uh-huh.
every however.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
I know they have a
Mercury
retrograde.
goes into
Interesting.
retrograde about 4 times every year. Um, this year
Mm-hmm.
we've got a lot in the Earth signs. So we've got three in Earth signs and one.
Do you mean this year,
Yeah,
like 23 or 22? You like there? Wait, I'm done. Honestly, like in my mind, I'm like, I've moved on. It's New Year's hasn't already happened yet.
I
Like
got
I'm done.
back station home. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, so it's January already. Oh, it's really not.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Before we get too much started, I got so excited. Do you want to lead us in
I would love
a
to,
little
yeah.
mini
All right,
meditation?
so if you want to close our eyes for a moment
Okay.
and take a few deep breaths, breathing in through your nose, holding it at the top for a few seconds, and then exhale out the mouth. We're going to do that 2 more times, breathing in through the nose, holding it at the top, and exhale out the mouth. Let it go. And breathing in, and breathing out. And with your eyes still closed, maybe wiggling your toes and wiggling your fingers, allowing yourself to kind of come into your body here and really ground down and breathe deeply into your stomach and into your wiggling toes and your fingers. It's been a chaotic few weeks and a chaotic few weeks to come through the holidays and as we move through this retrograde. Maybe just bringing a smile to your face here. And taking one more breath in. And a big sigh out. And then opening your eyes when you're ready.
Wonderful, thank you. As soon as we started doing that, this is typical. You'll find this is going to be every time. My as soon as I'm doing something, my cats get like very excited, and as soon as we started doing our meditation, I don't know if you can hear it. Quattro started scratching at the door. So give me 2 seconds. You just chat about something. I will be right back. And she just wants me to feed her, I think. I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
find out.
I'm
I gotta
actually
talk to her.
going to go ahead and grab one of the books that I was going to use to chat so I can kind of show everyone that. Um, and it's one that I recommend, especially if you're interested in astrology. It kind of touches base on the houses, it touches base on the planets, and all the different signs and what that all sort of means. Because a lot of times you'll hear a lot of like the astrological terms of like something in conjunction or squared. So I was saying I was just going to show one of the books that I've been using for a lot of the research that I do. And it's this big, looks like a textbook. It's about that big. So it's Astrology Using the Wisdom of the Stars in Your Everyday Life by Carol Taylor. So, but it's really easy to follow. There's lots of pictures. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And right there on Mercury, which is what we're about to talk about.
Perfect. That's yeah, I definitely get I'm obviously like really fascinated with astrology. I really respect it, and knowing my own chart like really changed my whole life, but I do get overwhelmed. So I like that it has like a nice chart because it seems like it should be math, right? Like it should have a textbook.
Which it is. And
like, yeah.
But also
it does.
I might have some noise in the background too. I'm in my partner.
Yes, cool. We're just done. Let's see. So it's in Capricorn. I've been feeling recently, and let me know if this is what you're picking up as well, just the way everything has converged. It feels like we're in this really wonderful, almost like a spring cleaning time in the middle of the winter, where suddenly it's like this is one of the first New Year's where I'm like, it feels like a new year. Like it never feels that way to me. It always feels like I'm in the middle of something, or like the holidays are sort of like a weird inconvenience and then things continue. But this is the first year where it's like, this is a whole new year. And I think this Mercury retrograde could not have come at a better time. Like everyone needs preparation time. They're like, oh my God, it can't be a new year. I have to like go within myself and like process and clean out things.
And
that's totally how I feel.
It's funny you said more of like, you used the phrase spring cleaning. I was thinking about that yesterday because I was going through the apartment and I was cleaning everything and putting things into piles and being like, I'm going to get rid of all of this. Why is this here? And I sat down and I was like, yeah, why am I doing this right now? Why do I feel so organized? Why do I want to sort of like clean everything? And I think it definitely is that Capricorn energy, like you had mentioned, how a lot of times people associate Mercury retrograde with a lot of its negative aspects because a tendency to mess things up, which it can. But with it being in Capricorn, it kind of reminds us that we need to sort of find that grounding and that motivation, especially in the workplace, and that balance too, because Capricorns tend to be workaholics. But definitely also with like the communication and the cleaning and the learning. So I do also agree that it came at probably the best time that it could, because it really sort of draws us our awareness back to what we need to start implementing for this new year that's coming.
With the Capricorn aspect of it as well, like I think what's so cool about it is that I think for so much of astrology, like we talk a lot about like relationship dynamics, or like like this thing's happening or that thing's happening, and like, oh, there might be tension between your whatever. But this one, I feel like, at least from the astrologers that I've heard of and like the vibe I'm getting, is like, yeah, so much career oriented and very almost like a selfish, like everyone shut up. I just had to see you all for Christmas and all for whatever. And like, now I really need to like get it together. Like it's everything that almost was like piled up. It feels like a little bit like a Sunday night or something. And you're just like, oh my God, I have so much stuff to do. Like I have all this stuff to do a weekend, and it was really fun. But like, there is this relief in being able to be a little bit selfish and be like, focus on like your presence in the world. Like, what is it that I am really here to be a resource for, and like I can't really be a resource for all the, like this is like the thing that I want to do. How do I support myself in all of this? And Capricorns are like so grounded, but like so obsessive about it. And I think that there's a real dignity that a Capricorn placement will bring to anything, where they're just like, no, 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 this won't do. Like we're doing it over again. Watch out.
Yeah, so sort of, I guess my question is, how have you kind of drawn that energy into your own sort of sphere of career? Because I know you said you're going through some shifts and there's a lot of there. So how have you really harnessed
Yes.
that energy and plan to continue to do so as we move through this retrograde?
Thank you, Mooney. I am going through a job shift. I don't know how much I wanted to. I've changed my job. The situation has changed. So many people's has changed so much since 2020 that I'm like, I'm just gonna live it and then maybe talk about it when I'm like 3 to 6 months in to see if like this is really happening. Like, but I actually think that is kind of a like I'm not getting overly excited. I am a little bit dignified about it, where I'm like, this is going to be great. I'm going to set myself up for success for it, and then I'm going to see what happens, and that's that. Like, but really, like, so much of thinking about also how I'm like presenting myself in the world. And my friends who have heavy, I only have one I have a Capricorn moon, but my very like heavy Capricorn placement friends, I think that it's a little bit of a strange placement to have in Capricorn. Because I've got some like Capricorn Mars friends, and like, God, do they love a list? They love a list. They love a plan. They love a, like, and it's a little bit different from that. But I have noticed them in my life recently just scurrying around almost like kind of carpenter, like carrying things around and that kind of thing. It's very exciting, and it's very like, I think that like really for myself, I've just been thinking, what do I want to wear? And for some reason, Capricorns are just like a well-dressed crew, and they seem to like wear the part that they're playing a little, like just from what I've noticed with all of it, like, because like along with this list building and everything, there's a lot of like, okay, and like how are we gonna seal this deal, like how am I going to like play that, because all of it is like preparation and obsession to play a part and to do it really well and to ideally do it the best, or potentially to one's ruin, but we're not getting that. I do not get that impression from this Capricorn, although it's ending at like 8 degrees, so I don't know what's going on there. It's a Capricorn. It's like, it's a Scorpio Capricorn. Yeah, so I think like for myself, I really want to clean out my closet. That's like my primary goal, and I'm like obsessively thinking about that. So I'd say really just cleaning out, yeah, my closet, being presentable in a Capricornian way. I think a good like first impression outfit also makes one feel good. That's
Yeah,
definitely the vibe.
I feel that very much.
What have you been What have you been doing to prepare in
I also
preparation for this
was behind a
retrograde?
little bit on it, and when I looked, I thought it was within the next couple days that it was starting, until I started to do some research, and I was like, oh, okay, no, this actually has started, which makes a lot of sense because in my realm, in the area of communication and careers, it's kind of brought a lot to the forefront for me to kind of reflect on where I'm
Mm.
satisfied and where I'm not. And within that, it's also sort of pushed me to try to find ways to communicate that I'm not really used to and not necessarily comfortable with. Um,
Mm.
yes,
Like with your
yeah.
dissatisfaction, you mean?
Like trying to navigate that through
Mhm.
communication, but also trying to find ways around it and kind of really implement that discipline and that drive that Capricorn has, which has been kind of difficult, but I think I noticed that sort of battle warring on in my mind today and with my emotions, as I was like, I am just really not happy right now. And I kind of realized that I have the choice. So I know I'm not happy. I'm going
Mm.
to choose to use that and the energy that is kind of present, at our disposal right now to implement like setting goals, like you said. And I had a vision board. I'm looking at it right now.
Mm.
It's empty. It's blank. I have had it for 2 months, and it has gone nowhere. So really, I think for me, what I need to do is make something that I can visually see and kind of bring in my Sagittarian energy into the
Yeah.
Capricorn and use that fire and that creativity to
Yeah.
sort of like, you know, kick up that dirt and that earthy energy to get me moving. Because a lot of times I'm either as far away from grounded as possible, or I'm so grounded that I'm not moving. So kind of finding that balance and really tapping into that I want to work energy. And I have sort of felt that, especially with this program that we had talked about that I'm going through. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, that's just advice for myself. Pull through with creating something like a vision board that I can see my goals and use the energy to work towards them.
Wonderful. Yeah, having a visual. I was thinking too about how Capricorn is the in the tarot, it's the devil card, I think. I think a lot of times, like so many things that we like, I would go so far as to say Capricorn is very motivated by the things it doesn't like, or like by devil energy, or by like things that it's like fed up with, or just like there's sometimes an exasperation, or it sometimes seems like Capricorn placements just like never stop working, and it's sometimes, yeah, again, can sometimes be to their detriment, but I think that there really is like a nobility behind it of like, what do I deserve, and this discipline um of like long-term payout, setting oneself up for stability. But I never, like, this is so obvious, but the way that you said it was great, where you're like, oh well, they can be so grounded that they don't move. And I was like, oh yes, that's exactly what that sensation is like. Sometimes you can feel like you're in that energy, and you're like, oh, I'm so stable that like it feels stagnant a little bit. But it's a cool mix. I really feel like we're at a cool juxtaposition of stuff going on, and even how you said it snuck up on you. Like, yeah, this is how like last we have there's like a whole bunch going on right now. There was last week was like the full moon. I was like, oh, I totally, or a new moon. It was a new moon, right? Because this is the full. Yeah, and there's like a full moon coming up at some point. I don't know, whatever. I I can never keep up. But yeah, I love what you like, being motivated by one's discontent, because we know like we deserve better or more or different, or just like
Yeah,
more, just something out there. It's almost like the beginning. Oh, it's like the beginning of like a Disney movie where they're like, there's got to be something more, and they're just headed out.
it's
That's
kind of
totally what we're
knowing that
doing right
you
now.
have the
Yes.
choice, kind of like Elsa's thing, like I can you, but I won't. But she did, and then she went after it, and it's like using that choice that
I
you
love
have,
it.
and although you don't want to right away, and you want to sit, like I initially was like, I'm gonna be angry. I'm gonna sit with this anger,
Mm,
and then I was like, but what is that gonna do if I just sit and stew on it? Like it's
mhm,
not gonna get me anywhere. So why not use the situation that I'm in, that I'm dissatisfied with, and figure out how I can use what I'm learning in it to get me to where I want to be.
mm,
And I also noticed like I do have a fear of stagnancy, or stagnancy, whatever the
mm.
word. um,
Yeah.
and, and I think that Capricorn is such a great earth energy to connect with, to sort of like be able to see what that would look like, stagnancy would look like, versus how to look at it and continue to move past it, like rest. Um, but
Mm,
continue to move past it. And I kind of related back to Ayurveda. I've mentioned I like to study Ayurveda a lot too. That earth
mm,
energy is called kapha, and you have the like elemental
mm,
combinations of it. It's kapha, pitta, and vata. And for me, kind of tapping into all of those interconnections with that earth energy, which would be kapha, is I am so far, like I said, off the spectrum of that, because I have imbalances in my own lifestyle that could constantly be on
mm.
the move, or be really flighty, or be very indecisive. And Capricorn and kapha, there's no room for that. Like it's, you know what you want, and
Yeah. Here we
don't
are.
take
Yeah.
any shit. Like you just, yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and any a different type of retrograde would have a totally different thing that we're looking back on. Because some retrogrades are like you've got like a Mercury retrograde in Gemini or something, and like everyone is out to lunch, like nothing is happening. Everyone's just like, what if this happens? Like it's like a totally different vibe, or like ruminating even on the past, as opposed to like actually like being really inspired. It's almost like a finality in a discontentment. Like this is the way that it is. Well, I can do this and I can do that, and like I'm industrious and I've got it, and like it's really it's fun. I mean, it's funny that like I'm getting this, like there's some sort of fiery undercurrent of this, but we're in Capricorn season and we've got this Capricorn, so it's like a really Capricorn energy. Maybe it's just like I feel like there's like a plow, like yeah, there's just like a real movement energy, which
Mars
is kind of
in
funny.
retrograde?
Um,
Because I think
I don't know what's going on with the.
yeah, because
I don't
if
know,
Mars
man.
is in retrograde, yes, it is. Mars is in retrograde until January 12th. And so we have that coupled with Mercury retrograde, which is until January 18th. And then
Like lots of preparation. I think
yeah, and we
that's what it
also
feels like.
oh
Preparation.
my God,
Yeah,
in
bunkering almost.
like last week when we were talking, we were finishing Chiron retrograde, which was an Aries, also another fiery sort of energy. So ending sort of push and that fire, have Mars retrograde, and now the Mercury retrograde.
Yeah. I love it though. I'm obsessed. I really love like how you said like you have kind of a fear of stagnancy. I love change. Like I love when something has been when it's like time for a change. Ooh, that like that fresh feeling is like so exciting. I never get sick of it. I love moving on to new stuff. But I do have a personality where like I tend to ruminate. So I actually do really well in retrogrades because nothing's happening. Usually it is like some time to myself. I need a little bit of time to catch up, sometimes to say goodbye to things, sometimes even to like allow myself to be excited for the future. So like every time that there is a retrograde, I'm like, oh, thank God, because like I need a second to catch up. Like things have been moving too quickly. I need some time to myself. I'm really excited about that. And everyone I talk to has also been sometimes like I feel like so many people are aware of this retrograde. I don't know if it's because it's the holiday season and we're all like, I don't know what's going on. People are just aware of it, but like everyone I've talked to has been like, oh, I'm so excited. Oh my God. Like,
Well, Mercury is like the most popular type of retrograde because of the what
yeah,
it
why is that?
affects. So it's the ruler of communication, of learning, and also technology and transportation. So it kind of rules everything that we're made up of right now. So in
Yeah. It's sort of like the bridge, I kind of like, because we were talking, okay, sorry,
but
I was going to interrupt.
you mentioned the slowing down, which is also what a lot of people talk about too, which is why they think it's so negative whenever Mercury, because
Yeah.
well, it rules communication and learning. So we communicate through technology. And a lot of times people will start to notice that they're having technological issues or even transportation. So vehicles can have like issues. And whether or not it's done or not, I mean, I just came back from a little group session, a mindfulness group session, and there was some technology issues with that. And I was listening to it today, and there's technology issues with it as soon as Mercury went into retrograde. But it's kind of really thinking about how you want to communicate with people too, outside of just technology and social media. I know there's a lot of times there's little scuffles that kind of end up happening, and a lot of people say that it's not a great time to have big conversations because it can be harder to find your words. But I personally think, again, it's that choice, and especially with that Capricorn energy, if you take a moment to breathe and really ground yourself down into what it is you're trying to convey, I think a lot easier to communicate, especially whenever you're more aware that it might be difficult. And also, too, there's a lot of
Yeah.
ways if you are more into the alternative medicines and healing and holistic health, things that help like different crystals and herbs, like oils. I mean, you think of like
Yeah.
peppermint and whatnot and spearmint, and you place that on your throat, and even like if you place it on your chest, it opens your airway, and that helps a lot too with communication. It helps clear your mind, smell it. So it's like kind of using those things to help you tap back into a more formal sense of communication, what would be more open and easy. And then also with learning too, I believe Mercury, that would be the Roman god of communication, and the Greek god variation would be Hermes, and he was like the messenger, and it's kind of like carrying news back and forth. And there's also invention involved too. So it has a lot to do with the way that our society is ran, which is why it's kind of like one of the most popular retrogrades.
Yes. Okay. What I was so excited about, like, because, like, yes, this is when we were texting us at like night, and we were like, oh, what are we talking about? And you're like, I think you said communication, or I don't know, somehow communication came up, and then you're like, oh, and it's a record, and it kind of trickled from there. But I had just been watching some person's TikTok, and I can't even remember what their thesis of the TikTok was. But basically what I got out from it was like, oh yeah, Mercury is like, and communication is like, oh my God. See, I get like the way that God speaks to us, or like spirit speaks to us, is through the world that we live in. It's not through words necessarily, and it's really not through something that like we consider to be communication. It's like everything. It's like the bridge between the subconsciousness and the consciousness. It's like, and that's why when the communication gets messed up, it's almost like our ability to like impact the world is slightly fuzzier, or it's like everything's in water, or like the distance that you think touching something will take is longer or shorter, and you're like, oh, this is like, it's almost like there's a feedback issue or something between the subconscious and the consciousness. And I'd never thought of it like that before. But yeah, like communication, really, like that the world is built upon a way that we are all communicating with each other, in that we're world building. And I'd never thought of it like that before. So I was excited to share that
That
with
is
you.
a really good way of putting it too. And especially whenever you said about, it's kind of fuzzy, and that feedback loop communication you have with yourself,
Yeah.
and like that communication between your and how your environment is viewed by yourself, like the perspectives you have, like that is a communication that you have like with your external environment and what's going on, which really can impact what you put out there, like you said, the things that you create, what you invent, and then what you build off of that too. And it acts not just you, but the relationships you have. So a lot of people too are like, oh, I can't have like a big conversation with my partner right now, Mercury's in retrograde, it's all going to get messed up. So I think
But sometimes it's like that's the only time we have access to that thing from the past, and you have to grab it while you've got it and like say what you need to say, and then it's like we're all moving on to new things. I think retrograde's a great time to have it out. If it's in the past and that's what we're dealing with, do it now, and then seal that up and then move on. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. And it's kind of crazy too. I mean, just start paying attention to small things throughout the day as like it goes on through January 18th, and see if there's like things that you notice, I would say, because I think there's a lot of things that we write off as coincidence, but it seems to happen in this time frame, in this window, and kind of shows you that we are impacted by our environment, because like the planets are part of our environment. We are bound to this earth. Like my feet are planted here because of gravity. There's a gravitational pull. So it's like the planet has its own moon, and it goes around the sun. Like they're all sort of in their own pull, and we're all in that line with the other planets. So of course it's going to affect us, kind of like how the moon affects the tides. Like why would it not affect us if we're made 70% of water?
Yeah. We're made up of the light that all sort of spears through
Exactly.
it. We're all like this sort of weird, I don't know, man. We're like these like
Yeah.
little puppets. Yeah. Dude, the way that we communicate, yeah. There was something that you said, and I can't even remember what it was now, but it was about, oh my gosh. Keep going. Were you at the end of your sentiment? Because now I can't remember
Yeah.
what it was. I remember. That was beautiful. I I think sometimes too. Oh, this is what it was. I got this image of I was watching. I don't watch. I feel like I never watch TV just for pleasure anymore. I just like I'm always like psychoanalyzing everything I'm watching, and I'm like, oh, is this? Did I find this for a reason? And I was watching very obscurely the third John Wick movie. Do you know what I didn't? It's got Keanu Reeves in it. Anyway, I was thinking about, I don't really know the plot of it too much. I didn't know it before watching this. Basically, there is like, I think he is some sort of assassin. He's in some sort of, he's somehow also still in the Matrix. I think Keanu Reeves just like is in any movie that's like kind of like the Matrix. So he's kind of in the Matrix, but basically there are these people who run these hotels around a city, and he has to like, I don't know why he's going to all of them, but the point is there, because it was just on TV and I was just like clicking through. But there was this one point where some sort of committee was basically like he's not allowed help anymore, and so if you're like a hotel, if you're in one of these hotels or whatever, like no one's allowed to help him. You can't give him any clues or anything. And so, and I was thinking about how similar that situation is with transit, with like planets kind of transiting, because there will be guides that I have, or like, like parallel lives or something, like, just however we view the insight of these like others that are actually us will come into season, like as these various things happen. And sometimes it feels like with a retrograde, it's like, okay, like hands off, like they're not allowed to help you anymore. Like there are some times in your life where everything feels like lucky. It's like all green lights go and you're just like, whoa, this is crazy. And then I feel like there are these set in times where it's like, okay, like there is no outside help, or there is going to be like purposeful delays or something. And then in these times we're able to yeah, like it's like the communication within ourself grows a lot stronger. And I think that it's almost time that like we like learn how to do, like we really become more of ourselves, because there's even time, like even early on in my awakening, like I was so codependent on my guy. I talked about this last week. Like I was only talking to them, like I really didn't trust my own intuition about things. I was like, it was just kind of like a strange codependency that I had, specifically on being like, oh, there are these other creatures, or like there are these other things, or like I'm just a part of this larger cog. But there comes a time where the communication that comes through is like there's no one and you feel alone, and that's when you get to move forward and you become larger and you actually become closer to your guides in that way at the end of it, which is crazy.
Moment to breathe into that. That was a beautiful way to explain that. So crazy how we have artworks like movies like that help us understand.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I'm always wondering about that, because like I know that there are some movies where you'll watch it and you'll be like, oh yes, and this is like meant to be the expansive art on this. And then sometimes there's always the theory, I don't know if you've heard of what soft disclosure. There's like a conspiracy theory that there's like a subsect of the government that makes movies that are like, here's what's going on. If you know it, then you know it. And some people don't watch those movies that are supposed, but like I'm like, why wouldn't you watch the movies that are like telling you what's going on? Like I think it's great. Please give us more info. But so I have no idea what John Wick was trying to get at, but like it was crazy. Actually, something that I did think was interesting about it was like there was this conversation between like the hotel owners and John Wick, who's like a player in the game. And the hotel owners were kind of saying like, I can't help you because I'm no longer a player in the game. I have decided to become the game. Like I've accepted a position as like a hotel runner. And I was kind of thinking about how like that's kind of what these like there are deities and there's like these old, very old ancient spirits you can connect to, but there are also like celebrity, like a lot of people have like Marilyn Monroe as a spirit guide, or they've got like Robin Williams as a spirit guide, or they've got someone who like died recently or something, and like how I don't know, this is kind of a tangent, but like how eventually like you do become a part of the game. Like for so much of your life you think like I'm a human, I'm doing this and this is what's going on, and like, oh, I'm so lowly in these like like if a guide comes to you, or like a dragon comes to you, you're like, this is so much bigger than me. But there comes a point, and like what they encourage you to do like your whole life is to realize, and then like eventually like turn around and be like, oh, I have become a part of the game, like I am now a resource. And ideally, like when we do pass and we become a part of everything, we are secure enough that like maybe we could be a guide to people who are still living, and like who knows how that works, you
But
know?
how would you say somebody can become aware of if they have that sort of like pathway of communication opened up between like a guide that they have? Maybe so and so would come back and be that type of spiritual guide for that person. How do you know? Or how do you like
Yeah.
pick up on it or become aware?
Interesting. I think for there's so many different ways. I think, and it's also like so personal to the practitioner or whatever. I think like there's sometimes there would be I would have a guide who would like literally come to this only happened a couple of times, and it was in 2020, and they were kind of like my like primary like larger guides that were like, hey, this is some stuff that's going on. Like they you literally get like a vision or something, or like you'd see them in a dream. But even like more subtly than that, this is actually my favorite way, and I've had people talk to me about this, is like there's almost, it winds up being like you an afterthought. Like you don't even realize you've been thinking about them, or you've been thinking like this one flower. You're like, oh, this flower. Oh, weird. I keep seeing this flower. Oh, that's so strange. And then, or like someone says it, or they've got that name, and then you just feel like sort of haunted. And then you look it up, and it's like the flower for some guy, for some like deity or something. And you're like, oh my God. And it's kind of like they pursue you a little bit. Like they are a little bit like, hey, I want you to like get to know me. I have like a story for you. And I love like Greek mythology for that too, because I feel like there are so many story arcs that we live. I mean, like, in my opinion, like those were just people too. They just like ages ago, and like how different are we? And sometimes they'll be like, "You're going through the thing I'm going through. Like, let me help you. Like, here's my story. Look me up. Find me." It's just like, do you find that as well?
Yeah,
Like, where
it's
they'll just like
crazy
drop a
how
little
all
hit?
sort of interconnect. So like you have Greek, Roman, and then you have like Norse, and they're all the same, but the story is the same.
Yeah, that becomes like clear like super quickly. You're like, wait a minute, are you all this? What?
Yeah, but it's
Like,
like
who
the
is this? Yeah.
archetypes too. And that's also why I love talking about, like the zodiacs and the planets, because all also archetypes. They are these celestial energetic bodies, like, but they are also archetypes because of what they help rule. And that's kind of what those stories, like from the Greek and Roman mythologies, like the deities, that's kind of what they rule. And whenever that's brought to your attention, it those messages to you, or it helps you work through a lot of the things that you're questioning. Like with me, for example, like a visual is like I'm so dissatisfied in like this area of my life, and then all of a sudden I start seeing like a rose. A rose has been um, one of my flowers that's kind of like keep going, this is the right way, or look out for this, or like this is where you need to be. And if it kind of shows up for me, and depending on like how it shows up, I'm like, oh, okay, because it's kind of that reminder for me to follow my heart. So if I see it somewhere where I'm like, oh, this feels kind of good, but I don't know, is this safe? If I see it, then I'm like, that's me. This is okay. But I've also had too, where in the dreams, like you've said, I've heard random names, or there's been like a child who's coming up and spoken to me in a dream, and they'll say something, and I'll like look up the phrase or the name or the word that I heard. And goodness, I'd have to find my dream journal, but there was one a couple weeks ago, and I had like met this deity or some animal, and it told me what its name was, and I looked it up the next day, and I was like, I've never heard this word in my life ever. I don't even know if I'm spelling this properly. I think I spelled it in my stuff, and it was a deity, and I was like, I've never heard of this before.
I love talking to you because like it is truly such a in those moments it feels like such a joy to be alive, and it's such a unique experience. But like it's the same, like once you've met someone else who has it, like it's this, I know exactly what you're talking about, but like until you've had it, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? But I was gonna say, I love that you have the rose behind you, and my flower is the sunflower that I see everywhere. So like I love that we've got our
Yeah, and like, I guess I would describe
oh
the
my god.
feeling. It's more than an aha moment. It's like you are the math teacher,
Yeah.
or the math teacher is just around you and within you, showing you the problem, and you put it together like a big puzzle. And then it kind of
Yes.
frames itself for you, and it was all put together by you. So, like, an aha
Yes.
moment 2.0, I guess. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it's like becoming, because like it feels like, this is the part that it's difficult for me to articulate to other people who are like, what is it like? It feels like someone has come to you, but it also, it the exact same time feels like you are them. Like you literally led yourself to that. And there's also this like appreciation I feel for my own body's like auric field, like drawing these things to me, because like truly at the base, like at what it reminds me of, like the eternalness of self, of being like, well, of course I know this, because like I'm an eternal being tapped into this, like whatever this is, and like, and it told me what I needed to know, and I told myself that somehow, and I am this being, and this being is me. Like it feels so good. It feels like just the, yeah, it's not even an aha, because it's so, I feel like for me there's such a comfort in it that it doesn't even give me the excitement. It's just like, all right, here we go. We're back on the saddle. Like, oh, thank God someone's around. I was getting nervous for a second. Did I make it all up? Or... Yes, I love that feeling. Oh my gosh. I was having it a little bit with Apollo, who I knew predominantly as Ra. And so it's cool when you're like working with a deity consistently, and they're like, great, you got this. And now I'm also this, though. Like they show you like a different facet of themselves. And it's like it's a way that I can view my own personal change. It's a little bit like when like the scenery in your dreams change. Like I view it as a way to view my own subconscious and the way that that's been shifting. So when suddenly like Ra became Apollo, I was like, oh, this is so interesting, because it's technically the same being, but there's like a whole bunch more myth and lore and stuff around it. And it was to teach me about Cassandra, who the myth of Cassandra is she was an oracle at Delphi, but no one believed her. But I didn't know this. She was cursed by Apollo originally, and I was like, I didn't. Yeah, that was just kind of that whole. So that led me down this whole rabbit hole, and like about like what it means to have like the gift of prophecy, and like I don't know, just like that whole concept, which I think like anybody who does any kind of reading dips into at some point. I think Cassandra's like always there for us, definitely. And I think Apollo was like, you'll love her. We'll
that
get
about
along
being
great.
able to relate to the stories and that archetype and those models, like that's kind of how you learn, and you're like, oh, I'm living this. And I
Yeah.
think for me, that's a lot of what associating with like the zodiacs or even tarot and oracle and doing a lot of that like esoteric work, to me it's being able to look at it as an archetype to understand myself better. And that's sort of how I does it, because it's like
Yeah.
it's almost like a placebo, but it's not at the same time, because I'm using it as a tool to help learn about myself. So it's more or less like, how am I going to grow as my own individual? And so, like, using even, tonight's topic, Mercury retrograde, it's like this body that is a representation of communication and learning and technology. It's like, how can I use this and understand how these play a role in my life, and how I utilize them, and like where sometimes I may be shortcoming of it. And even like all of those stories, it's like this beautiful just breath that continues to breathe in and out of you and through like all of these stories and all of the pages and the myths, and I love it.
You know what I love thinking about too is like about the myth that the individual soul makes. Like it's so incredible to like really feel in touch with these deities that we know about, you know, like all the stuff that we're aware of. And there's like really not that many considering how many of us there are. And realizing like that the soul's journey, that this continual breath throughout whoever we've been is like so much more epic than we can even imagine. Like, oh, it's so cool. Like whenever I do feel like very lost, or yeah, in times where I'm like, what did I set myself up for? There is, I think, sometimes the storyline, or like I think because we're both writers and avid readers, like we get this like the necessity of communication so much, like that one's life, almost art, like living one's life like art or whatever, is like the ultimate form of communication, to express what the soul's imprint is. Like knowing that words are never going to be enough. Like the things that we do even are like hardly enough, that there really isn't a way to fully express the soul except by living it. And that it's like ultimately like the more you work at things, like you'll always come back to the round, like you'll always, oh my God, I'm so excited. You'll always come back around to the fact that like just being is like a wildly radically amazing experience. And I think I always am reminded a little bit of that during a retrograde, because I get stuck on the like outward things, and I sometimes I need to like pull it back in and be like, just sitting and just resting, imagine all of the things that had to just like converge at the exact right moment for me to be like sitting and meditating right now. Is
It's like being in awe of it instead of being terrified or overwhelmed, because it can be.
Yeah.
I am the
Yes, it's so
universe. The
scary.
universe is me, but it's like, what do I do with that? You let it be and you live. Like that's all you gotta do is you just wow.
Yes. And I think I love that about like retrogrades, because like I'm really I think it might be because I've got an Aquarius Mars. So like my doer is a bit of a thinker. And so even when I'm doing real hard, I'm thinking mostly. So like for me, I love just like really contemplating. I'm so excited to be supported by the planets. It almost feels like sometimes yeah, it's like not the right time to do certain things. And so when it is actually time to rest, it's a little bit of a crash. When it's time to rest right now, it's also equally exciting. And I think that learning to be alone with oneself is like the most fruitful endeavor sometimes, because it allows us to connect to, it feels like a pit stop a little bit, like we need like kind of like a tune up, and then the rest of the race goes so much smoother because of it. So I don't think it's anything to be afraid of. However, I understand why growing up in a capitalist society we were always taught to fear it, because it is certainly not making progress in the way that we, in fact, it might be undoing some progress, you know? It might be tower momenting some things that like are not good for our soul.
Yeah, and it's
So,
definitely some of the hardest work.
I'm excited though. I've definitely got my favorite playlist for just kind of like chilling, sitting and feeling. I've recently that's what I've been thinking about as meditate, like not calling it like I'm gonna sit down and meditate. I'll just think about like needing to recharge. I'll be like, I just need to sit and chill for a second, and then I'll like trick myself into meditating. But my favorite are rain sounds. I love a good rain sound. It's like a Pavlovian response. Like it's some kind of something. You know, I don't know if you've heard this. There's this, I don't know, saying or like knowing that bird sounds, like I guess like humans are somehow comforted by bird sounds, and if you don't hear bird sounds for a while, like your brain thinks that there are like predators in the forest. I don't know, but however that is, I feel like that about rain. Like if I don't hear rain for a while, I really get like I don't know, I'm like, what's going, why hasn't it rained?
So just
Oh,
this
what that
morning I was
means,
listening
but
to like a thunderstorm sounds. I put that on my phone while I was doing, and like while I was going through
hell
my yoga
yeah.
flow and doing like, it was supposed to be a grounding flow too, and just listening to the thunder and the rain as I was like going asana and then meditating. It was so relaxing. It was almost like that feeling of having it washed away. But I have, for me personally, um, the desire to always listen to fire crackling. That's really comforting.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've never thought of that before. Oh, that might be what I'm gonna try. I'll try. But if it gets too over, I'll switch right back to rain if it gets too
Um,
overwhelming for me. But I'll let you know. Um,
I think on Spotify, the I think it's called Soul Good, and yeah, and they have,
good.
yeah, and they
And they've
have,
got
well,
the fire
the
sounds.
campfire
Okay.
sounds, they have rain sounds, thunder sounds, sandstorm. But I was listening to, I think it was like Country Night or like Night in the Woods, and it was the sound of the crickets because that's what I would hear in the woods beside my house growing up. And when I'm laying in bed and I put that on, I close my eyes and all I see is like myself looking through the gaps in the trees and lightning bugs everywhere. It's like that visualization immediately, and I'm just out.
Oh, I love that. That's so nice. Maybe I will explore various nature scenes for my meditating and stuff. I like just having them on too. I really love, I mean, like I'm like a solfeggio scale junkie. Like whatever I'm like, oh, anywhere in my body, I'm like, well, I need such and such solfeggio. Like I need that now. And I'm listening to that all day, and I'm like, yes, this is really like I'm so extra
I'm
about it, which I love.
so in line
So
right
like,
now.
what? Yeah, and I'm like, oh yes, my throat. Oh, I can feel it in my throat. Like I'm so extra. Yeah. And what I love when there's those, and it's like that, and it's like rain sounds. It's like 5:28, and then there's like I don't know, like a thread of something else in there. Like it's also like a binaural beat. Like oh my god, just layer it on for me. Like I'm like, there's gotta be some connect. I mean, there's gotta be some connection there with. So, I don't know. I don't know. Like sometimes it's funny where like it needs more things on it. Like it needs to be the best sound that's ever been created for me. Yeah. What you said about thunder, though, reminded me of something that I heard. And maybe you've heard this phrase because it seemed like a phrase that like people had heard before. It was like just on, again, like some TikTok, and it had like emotional music over it. But I never heard it before. It was like something along the lines of like really strong emotions are like a thunderstorm, and it looks like it's tearing apart the sky. Like it literally looks like it's shooting the sky up, and it cannot hurt the sky. It's a part of the sky. That one did it for me. I was like, yeah, the storm is part of the sky.
Uh,
It can't hurt the sky.
that is
I've been thinking on
like,
that
I
one.
don't even know what to say to that.
Had you heard that one before, though? Yeah, I hadn't heard that one. And I've heard them all. So I haven't heard that one.
I love that.
Yeah, but I think that's that's like definitely, I know that's going to stay with me for a while. That'll be like a little catchphrase that I have with a little inside joke with myself for a while. But that's a great one for a retrograde when we're inside of ourselves and we might be having some storms, or we're storm cleaning, or we're storm like, oh my God, I have to fix my life this very moment, like stuff like that. Like, actually, this is a part of the life. Like, and the retrograde is a part of the continuation of the story. You're not going backwards. It just looks like you're going backwards. Yeah, I think that sometimes like if we can see things just like a touch more poetically, if we can just like find something like that to cling on to, like, the thunder is a part of the sky, I can't hurt the sky, that's what just keeps you going. It all goes, yeah, it all comes back
It's
to a good
like
story
it
though,
goes
doesn't
on,
it?
like the metaphor continues with the rain away, and then the clouds part, and the rainbow comes out, and the sun is out. Like it all continues to just go, and then as the clouds will come back, but then they'll part again. So it's like so beautiful, and to also, yeah, like you said, for this Mercury retrograde, to keep it in mind, especially even during the holiday seasons, to just breathe and let the storm. It
I
goes
love
on.
what you said, it goes on.
So, one of the phrases I picked up from, and I saw a couple of my friends from the yoga training from Guatemala, the YTT 200, they popped on here. But one of the sayings that we learned from Sanskrit is Hariom Tat Sat, and it just means it is what it is. It is what it
Yep.
is. And you just go on. That's all it is.
Yeah. There's so much power in that, because like, don't you feel like when you actually lean into that stuff, it's like it's like it like whenever there are so many big things, it's so exciting to then be like, oh, and they're for me, like, and I'm the one experiencing it too. It's such a like such a surprise blessing every time. Like I've been alive for a while now, but it just, whenever I remember it, I'm like, for me, I'm me, it's me. This is my life. This is crazy. This is really, it goes on. Like there's more. There's always more. It just keeps happening. I'm pumped. thoughts on this retrograde, on
Um,
retrogrades in general?
well, let me like take a peek at
Check your notes. You have notes. I love that you have a note. I love you got
always.
notes.
I always have notes. Um, yeah, so this retrograde, like as a recap, will end on January 18th, and it'll go into retrograde three more times. And then also,
Do we know what the other retrogrades are this
the
year?
dates for
By
them?
any chance? Or
Yeah,
just
so
like what?
it
Yeah, what
will
signs I guess
on
they're in.
April 21st to May 14th, it'll be in retrograde in Taurus. And then August 23rd to September 14th, it'll be in Virgo. So those are the other two Earth signs it'll be in. And then on December 13th to January 1st, 2024, it'll be in Sagittarius. So I'm
Yeah, you're done. You're like, I'm over it. We're
yeah,
moving on. Yeah.
that one. But yeah, also I think kind of like to round it off, just being cognizant of how you interact in your relationships. How accountable are you with others, with yourself in the workplace? How are you choosing to show up? How are you choosing to express yourself when you show up? And maybe taking a breath before you speak, maybe taking a breath whenever your Zoom call is not working, like those kinds of things. Maybe restarting your Bluetooth, because in my car, every time I've gotten in since this has started, my Bluetooth won't connect and I have to try it 5 times. And so it's like, just take a breath. It's all good.
Yeah. It is
Hariom
what it
Tat
is.
Sat. It is what it is.
Right, I love that. Oh, perfect. Well, yeah, I'm super excited. I love I think accountability is like the big word because it means so many
Yeah.
things. Accountability to who? To yourself and to your own and like do you know what your own beliefs are? Like how do you know how to be accountable to yourself? And yeah, like are you showing up in the way that is the most respectful to where you want to be? Like are you were we yeah, I just love it. There's so many possibilities. I think we're all going to be on a big adventure and I'll see you for it for all of it. I mean, like because it's what
Yeah.
3 weeks long. We'll find out what
That.
happens.
As
To
Yeah,
be
and then I'll
continued.
just like close with this little phrase that I pulled from the book. For specifically in the retrograde that's like in Capricorn right now, like a key phrase would be goal-driven learning. Yeah,
Goal-driven learning. Mm-hmm.
goal-driven learning.
I love it. Cool. Wonderful. Thanks for being here with me. And I wanted to mention that our YouTube, it's gonna be on YouTube. I figured it out. Yay! I'm like downloading this Instagram. It took me a week to figure it out, but we did it. And here we and I assume it's gonna go well from now on. So we'll be on YouTube. And I'm still doing this. But how can people reach you, Mooney? Because are you do you
Yeah,
have more
so right
links up
now
or
I
anything like
would
that?
probably just follow my Instagram and my Facebook. They're the same, moony.maris. And I actually this week and next week I'm working on kind of like fixing up my posts and whatnot, which I'll have more links in my bio, like in my profile, my Instagram. So like whatever
Yes.
links I update, it'll be there because my blog is definitely going to be like the main one, and then the YouTube that we have is going to be up there too.
Wonderful. And I'm just at Awaken Atlas on whatever. So yeah, I'm here. TikTok, doing whatever. So that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
see
And
ya.
I'll see you next week.